Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wharton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 259. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joe Casey. I'm really looking forward to sharing today's episode with you because this is one of the biggest issues that I've struggled with. It's one of the things that I work with clients on. It's one of the core topics I work on with people. So today, Joe and I are talking about, will they like me? What will people think? We share our own journeys, what it's been like for us in dealing with these fears, how these limiting beliefs, limiting questions, I guess, have kind of held us back in business and what we've done to get over them, how it shows up for us. We talk about why this happens. Why do we have these fears? Why do we even care what people think of us? We talk about how this shows up in business and how it holds us back, why it's a problem and why we need to work on it. We explore how perfectionism comes into play and why we need to get used to taking imperfect action, even if it's scary, even if we're worried, what will people think if it's not perfect? Because of course, everyone else is perfect. We discuss how this is related to resilience and how we can strengthen our resilience muscle. Yes, we have talked about this in the past. I will link to that episode in the show notes if this is something that you know you need to learn more about. We discuss why we need to step outside our comfort zone in all areas of our life, not just business, and how taking action outside our comfort zone in our personal life, with our hobbies, whatever, can have a ripple effect in our business. We talk about what you can do to change this, to change these fears, to transform these beliefs around will they like me, what will people think, and how you can release these fears so you can take action more easily. We also share practical baby steps that you can take to get used to speaking out, get used to taking action in your business despite having these fears. Will they like me? What will people think? This is such an important topic, and I honestly don't know anyone who hasn't experienced some form of this. I think this is very common. I think it's very a very natural thing to be afraid of. The thing is, it holds some of us back more than others. So, you see these people out there online taking big actions and making big statements and being really bright and bold and really letting their personality shine. And sometimes it can be scary to do that. And I totally get that. So today we are talking about what you can do to stop being beige, to stop being neutral, and to start putting more of your personality, your true personality, online, speaking your truth, despite the fact that you may still have those fears about what will people think of me.
Hi everybody, this is Joe Casey. I'm here with Holly Wharton. We're here with our monthly episode where we discuss all things mindset and meaningful business. And today we're going to be talking about something that comes up a lot, doesn't it? The fear that so many of us have about what will people think of me if I put this thing out online, or if I build this business, or if I really go for it, if I share this opinion. And this thought that holds us back way too often, this whole kind of, will they like me? Will they shun me? Will they approve of me? In this age of the pressure cooker, the dumpster fire that can sometimes feel that the online world is becoming, I think it's a question that occurs to a lot of us. And I see it in my work with clients who are maybe not being as visible as they want to be. I see it in myself when I'm getting ready to launch something or to promote something. So I think it's worth spending some time just unpacking this. So hi, Holly.
Hey.
So what's your take on this? Is this something that you experience as well?
Yeah, this was a massive, massive issue for me. I think this is one of the biggest things that I've had to overcome in my business journey so far. And I feel like it was kind of one of the symptoms of low self-esteem, low self-confidence, value, self-value that I was experiencing when I started out on this entrepreneurial journey. It's actually something that showed up even in my first business, because I think as soon as this online world kind of started and my first business appeared on TripAdvisor, that was kind of the first hospitality, I don't want to say social network, but where people were doing reviews and things and I was showing up and commenting and that kind of thing. That was when I first kind of became aware of, what will people think of me? Will they like me? They're giving my hotel a bad review. So clearly that reflects on me as a person. And so I started to feel kind of personally hurt by those reviews. And this was way back in, I don't know, when did TripAdvisor start? 2001? That was kind of the first time I just felt like, oh, they don't like me because they had a bad experience or something minor happened or whatever. So that was kind of when it started. And I've done a lot of mindset work on clearing this stuff because it's continued to come up and continued to come up and continued to come up. And even just this week, I released a podcast episode with Joanna Hannon that we did on our price is too high as online entrepreneurs. And that made me feel a bit icky because it was a conversation. We weren't saying everyone's prices are too high and we must all lower our prices. It was, let's ask this question, because Joanna had gone to see a psychologist for her son who was charging, I think, €100 an hour. And this woman's got a PhD from this expensive university and she's got years and years of experience and she's charging $100 an hour. And how does that compare to online prices? So that was kind of the start of the conversation. But still, I was thinking, what are people going to think of me? Are they going to think I have money issues? Are they going to think I haven't worked through my money beliefs, that I have money blocks? Because the whole online world is about, like, you've got to value yourself and raise your prices, and you've got to value yourself. And if your prices are low, you don't value yourself. And we were caught up in that thing. And I was just thinking, what are people going to think of me? But it didn't stop me from releasing that podcast episode. So it's like kind of I've done the work so I can say the stuff, but I still get those twinges. What will they think of me?
Yeah, you were laughing because I have that same voice with that same tonality that pops up for me as well. Yeah, what are you doing?
Who do you think you are? So what's your journey been like on this?
Oh, God. So my entrepreneurial journey, I think I spent about 10 years kind of preparing to launch. In terms of all this, because I did a lot of that hiding stuff. Like, I taught myself how to design websites. I taught myself how to copyright. I did all of those things while still having a full-time job. I know loads of people are building business on the side, but I wasn't actually building a business. I was just learning these things. I wasn't offering services initially. I was just learning these things, and I had a blog and I had a website, and it looked kind of, shiny from the outside, but I wasn't ever doing the thing of, hey, you can hire me for this amount, because what would people think if I started asking for money in exchange for my services? And so I did a lot of hiding. I think one of the ways that it shows up for me is in perfectionism. So it has to be perfect. Until it's perfect, I'm not going to kind of release it. And people who've worked with me one-on-one will be killing themselves laughing at this, because one of the things that I say over and over again is we need to get used to taking imperfect action. And I say that because that's something that is an ongoing journey for me, is something that I still have to resist, because the way that this pops up for me more often than not is, if I release it and it's a bit shit, what will people think of me? And that has a good aspect to it, because obviously you want to have high standards. You don't want to be releasing things that is a pile of poo. But at the same time, that can also go way too far, because it can mean that at one point I spent 3 months agonising over a logo. And to be clear, I was getting about 3 people a week visiting my website at this point. My logo didn't matter at all.
But what did they think of your logo? Those 3 people.
Yeah. But I think this goes to a wider kind of cultural thing around this, in that as humans, if we think back to when we were hunter-gatherers, that kind of, the way that our brains are wired when we were tribal, to be thrown out of the tribe, to be cast out of the tribe, meant death. We couldn't physically survive on our own. We'd have been eaten, or we'd have been killed by something, we'd have died of exposure, there wouldn't have been enough food, and we're still kind of hardwired for that. So we have this inbuilt desire to be accepted by the wider tribe. And so that's not changed for thousands of years. If you think back to, and my gran used to talk about, she lived in a very close-knit working class Catholic community in Liverpool. 30s and the 40s and the 50s. She would talk about the importance of, well, making sure you didn't let the street down.
Ooh.
So, like, if you hadn't scrubbed down your front step at least once a week, then other people would be talking about you. There was once a time, I even feel a little bit bad even sharing this now, and she passed many years ago now, but I've still got that kind of shame of sharing this. But she talked once about them having an infestation of fleas, and them having to get the flea man round in the middle of the night because they didn't want the neighbours to. And the flea man was used to coming round in the middle of the night because this was obviously a common thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the fact that they got fleas because they were dirty or anything like that. It was just one of those things that happened. But that judgment and the power of that judgment could have serious social consequences. And so this is nothing new. It's just that to run an online business, to run any kind of business, to do anything that's outside of the norm, you're an outlier. And that is scary. And there's something vulnerable about that. But it's kind of our bread and butter work. It's one of the issues that we have to get to grips with. Because otherwise, well, what would you say are some of the, because I'm just aware that I'm going off on my soapbox again. What are some of the things that you see happen if people don't deal with this kind of, as our resident mindset expert, what are some of the ways that you see this showing up?
Before I answer that question, I have to say, what you mentioned about your nan and washing the front stoop, I'm just aware, I went out for a run this morning, came back in, and we have like a non-existent front garden at our house. It's like this little patch of rocks, but there's some weeds in it that I haven't pulled. And as I was walking into my house after my run, I felt shame for my weeds. And our house is on a corner, so people walk by our house all day, and I've got like, I mean, it's not like a weed patch. There's 5 or 6 weeds that I could pull. And I had that thought, like, what are neighbors that I don't even know, because I don't even know my neighbors, but what are they going to think of these weeds in my patch of rocks in my garden?
I know.
So it shows up in so many ways, like business and non-business. And kind of starting to answer your question, I think it's really useful to identify where this stuff shows up in all areas of our life, business and non-business, because if you can clear those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, those fears, it will kind of have a ripple effect in all the other areas. So how does it show up? I see it show up in so many aspects of business, but it's all about trying to fit in. Like you said, so you're not cast out from the tribe. So you don't want to rock the boat. When you speak out, you maybe water down your opinion a little bit so it's easier to digest. You don't really say the things 100% unfiltered that you want to say. Playing small, hiding, not speaking up on things that you want to speak up on for fear that what will people think. There's so many different little ways that it can show up in business. Sending out emails every week or every month to your list and not ever letting them know what you do or how they can give you money or what services you're offering. Or one thing I didn't do for the longest time, and it's so embarrassing now that I say this, but I wouldn't send out emails because I didn't want people to unsubscribe. So this was years ago, kind of with my first list. But it was like I would only sporadically send out emails because I just thought I don't want to bother them and then have them unsubscribe because then I'll feel bad about myself.
Oh, I have that too. I mean, I have to say, I'm now at a stage where every time I send out an email, I'll get like 7 or 8 unsubscribes, and that's okay. They don't all, like they did on this latest email I've just sent out, kind of email me back telling me, because I'd sworn in this particular email, and one person emailed me back to say swearing is unacceptable in my inbox. Please stop emailing me. Okay. But I did have that kind of, she doesn't like me. Just for a moment. But that whole kind of, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be too in their face. Will they think I'm obnoxious?
I'm too salesy. I'm selling stuff all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And while it's really important that we're not being just kind of bam, 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 bam in your face with all the marketing, ultimately this whole thing of being ruled by that what will people think of me, it's a killer of dreams. Because whether it is you kind of playing small and not being able to build the business that you want, or as you were talking, I got this really sharp memory of a conversation I had with a friend's father not long after I'd qualified as a life coach. And so I needed some practice clients, and she said, my dad would love to. He was lovely, and it was somebody I knew pretty well, and it was great to talk to and stuff. And he told me that he'd always wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
And he was a really funny guy. He was one of these people who's naturally very, very funny. At this point, he must have been in his early 70s. And I said, so what's stopping you from doing this? Oh, I couldn't possibly. What are people going to think? Somebody my age doing something like that. And he never did it. I'm still in touch with the family.
Oh.
He's never done, as far as I know, he's never even told them about it.
Oh.
His family. And that's a dream. Dies on the vine.
Oh, yeah, that's so sad.
It is so sad. And I think about all of the things that we hold ourselves back from doing because we're worried about what people will think. And while nobody likes that feeling of being ostracised or being criticised, actually in the vast majority of cases, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get some people who maybe are a bit critical or maybe tell you being stupid, but it's not going to equal death.
No. And it's something that I think we have to get used to as online entrepreneurs, because we open ourselves up to the comments and reviews of people that don't know us and don't care about us and don't care about our feelings. I mean, I remember my first YouTube videos that I put up, I disabled the comments because I was so afraid of getting YouTube comments. And I have this one YouTube video that's now got just over 100,000 views. So that obviously means it's gone out to a wider audience, and it's about self-muscle testing. So I get a lot of people going on there saying, what are you, crazy? This doesn't work. It's dangerous. I had a comment the other day that was like, the Bible says that divination is of the occult and is a sin. And I was like, delete. So I've gotten to the point where...
Sorry, listeners, you can't see the look on my face right now, but...
But I almost responded and said, thank you very much for letting me know. I'm not Christian. I don't give a shit. But I don't want to feed the trolls. But so I've gotten to the point where I can enable comments and I can receive comments, and I don't take them as personally. I mean, I do sometimes get a little twinge of like, but... yeah, I can handle it. Like, I actually deleted a bunch of comments on that video just yesterday because they weren't adding to the conversation. They were just shit. So I thought, I'm not leaving this up there. Yeah. Delete. But I think it's been a journey.
It is a journey, yeah. It is almost like a muscle that you can strengthen. I mean, that's not to say either of us, I think, are people who deliberately go out and court controversy. I mean, some people absolutely thrive on it. I'm not a kind of seeking the drama or anything like that, but there are times that I share stuff and I think this is going to be a little bit controversial, or just, and actually there are times where I share something that goes, well, that's just really obvious and neutral, and I still get pushback. You do get used to it, but it's hard. Have I shared the time when I kind of the worst criticism ever that I was hearing that I actually got? I'm sure I've shared this at some point, so forgive me, listeners, if you've heard this before. So I had two main fears when I kind of first did start to actually start to do something with my business. One was that somebody would say, or that people would say, you're not qualified to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And the other was same type of thing, who do you think you are type thing.
Yeah.
And the first time that happened was actually when an ex of mine, who I didn't have a fantastic relationship with and still don't, which is why we are exes, just sent me this horrible message about who do you think you are, portraying your perfect life online like you're so bloody perfect, blah, 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 blah. It was almost word for word what my deepest, darkest fear was that somebody would say. Wow. And I thought, oh, piss off. Just so perfect that it came from him. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it wounded for a minute, it really did. I had an oof feeling. Yeah. But then it was like, no, you don't have the right to say that to me. And it kind of broke the spell on that one for me. Yeah. Because he was somebody who knew my life. He was somebody that was, a very sad and bitter person. So I was able to kind of bat that one back and kind of, oh, that's not mine to carry. That's not my criticism to carry. Other one was a time when I'd written a blog post about how positive... So there's some really interesting psychological research about how positive thinking can be unhelpful. If you just do the kind of think positive, it'll be fine. Because what all this research has found is that if you just do that, so they did one study where they got some students who were preparing for their exams. They had the control group kind of carry on with their kind of revision and study plan. They had the test group do some visualization every day of them doing fantastically well in their exams. They found that the test group did worse than the control group. And when they looked at the amount of study time both groups had done, the positive thinking group had done less studying and less revision.
Because they were visualizing.
Because they were visualizing it. And so there's lots of really interesting stuff around that. You know, positive thinking visualization can be really good with some things, like stress and getting you into the right frame of mind and things like that. But you do also have to do the things. It's like if you were going to go, I don't know, bungee jumping. You can't just visualize doing this amazing, perfect bungee jump. You also need to go and check your harness and make sure that the rope is safe and all of that stuff. So I'd written this article about, I don't know, this was at the time when I was getting maybe 30 views a week on my blog, so I don't even know where he'd come across it. Somebody wrote this really, really critical comment, and it was a doctor. He said it was a doctor, somebody, who was basically saying I was dangerous, I was giving people dangerous advice, I wasn't qualified to be giving people, I clearly hadn't understood anything about positive psychology and positive thinking. It was all of the worst thing. It was like this, my deepest, darkest fear had come true, and I read it and felt sick and thought I was going to throw up, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I walked away, and then I read it again and still felt sick, and then I read it again. And the weird thing happened was I read it a few times and thought, well, but no, that's not what I'm saying. And then I read it again and thought, oh no, he's misunderstood that bit. And by the time I must have read it like a dozen times and thought, oh no, he's not understood this, he's wrong. And it was the weirdest feeling. It was such a liberating feeling to actually work through that fear and get to the point of, oh, this guy is, he's either not understood or he's just being deliberately a bit of a troll with it. But it was liberating to have what in my head was the worst thing that could happen at the time. And to not only survive it, but actually to kind of, it reinforced the fact that everything I'd posted was researched. I'd put links to the relevant kind of research in the white papers and things like that. I don't actually need to be a doctor or a psychologist to be able to have an opinion on this. Yeah. And it was such an empowering feeling. And I wouldn't have got to that place had I still been in the kind of, oh, I'm not going to put anything out just in case. Actually, sometimes having your worst fear on this type of stuff come true can be really helpful. That being said, I've got friends who, particularly women of colour, who have got some horrific kind of consistent trolling online. So my experience of it, I have to acknowledge, has been really minimal. And I didn't get the kind of constant barrage that some people have had. But in terms of helping you to kind of root into what do I actually think on this? Do I stand by this opinion? It was really, really useful.
I think it's interesting because the things that you're afraid of, people saying you're not qualified, who do you think you are? Those are kind of manifestations of the belief I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to write this blog post. I'm not good enough to do this video. I'm not good enough to do a podcast on this topic. And that is such a fundamental limiting belief of so many entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's so common. And it's something that gets triggered by all of these things that we do to market our business.
Yeah.
If we're actually taking the action.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So what have you found have been things that have helped for you?
So absolutely doing mindset work. So using Psych-K to do beliefs. I'm safe in the world. I'm safe in the online world. It's safe and appropriate for me to speak my truth. Stuff like that. Also doing the heart-centered energy work to release the energy blocks. Doing the mindset work, being aware of where I'm holding myself back, where I'm hesitating to take action, where I'm not taking action, and figuring out what do I need to believe to make it easier for me to take action, and doing that work. Another thing that's really helped me, and this is going to sound kind of like weird advice, but I'm fairly active on Reddit. Not for business reasons, just to like read stuff online. And that can be a really hostile community. So I change my username every few months because I don't want to say too much personal stuff and be identified. So I try to stay really, really anonymous. But I also kind of use it to share my opinion on things because I'm anonymous. and experience the backlash. And I feel like that helps me kind of get used to saying stuff online, even though I'm not saying it as me. So like, I don't know, there's this post, it was last week or the week before, about some guy in California he was a gun collector and he had like 553 guns seized by the police because he was a felon, and as a felon you can't have guns, but he was a collector, and there were all these like amazing, I'm air quoting as I say this, like historical guns and like all kinds of guns, but there were like 553 of them. And so all these people were saying, this is terrible because the guns are going to be destroyed and blah, blah, blah. And this one person said something about, but these are collector's items. And then I said, yeah, but I kind of feel like even if they're collector's items, no one needs 553 guns. Like, that's a lot of guns. And I got downvoted like crazy. And someone said, well, so what does that mean? You're not allowed to collect 553 widgets? And I said, well, if the widgets kill people, then no, I think that's a little weird. So anyway, I got into this whole conversation of like debate with this anonymous internet person, me as an anonymous internet person, but it's like, it wasn't easy for me to say, even though I was being anonymous. But I feel like that kind of stretches the muscle a little bit to state my opinion on things that matter.
That's
but
fascinating.
it helps. It helps.
I see a whole new side of you now, knowing that you have this Reddit habit.
Anonymous Reddit comments.
Yes. Because my son uses Reddit a lot, and I'm like, oh, isn't that just how he said, well, no, you have to know which chat rooms to go on. And I'm terrified of the place. It just seems like a hotbed of horrors.
You just got to be anonymous. I mean, I mostly participate in like women's related subreddits where people are very civilized. But every once in a while, I will comment in something in one of the default subs, like Ask Reddit or something like one of those. And that's where I get the shitty comments. And that's why I try to stay anonymous and change my usernames. But it's really helped me to stretch my muscle in terms of saying things that I know I'm going to get downvoted for. I know people are going to comment and be like, nah. So it helps in a weird way. So that's another random.
No, that's really fun. So there was quite a few years ago when I was much more active politically, as in would go door knocking and stuff like that. Of course, I was a proper political activist in those days rather than just the keyboard warrior that I tend to be more often than not now. But I can remember being involved with a group that was all about encouraging more women to get into politics. And one of the programs that they have, which at the time I was really critical of and didn't want to get involved with, basically was this weekend intensive training where these women who were kind of would-be politicians were kind of given this ordeal of fire of just being criticised and pilloried for the whole weekend.
Oh, wow.
Because it was kind of saying, but you have to get used to this kind of treatment. And so because I'm all kind of, I'm all kind of soft and I'm HSP and I'm like, oh no, don't do that, let's be nice, let's be kind and things like that. I tend to be much more of an advocate for let's have community, let's have support, let's be able to work through the concerns. But that being said, from both our experience, I think there is an element of we need to kind of grow almost like our Teflon coating, we almost need to grow our resilience to these things. Because there's a physiological thing that happens to us when we are verbally attacked. It's very similar to if we were being physically attacked. It's the same kind of response. And learning how to tolerate that and kind of bring I suppose one of the things that it seems to me that's being online is we're all a bit trigger happy when it comes to that. It's like, cortisol's going to shoot up. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's awful. And I feel personally attacked if someone's disagreeing with my opinion. There's been some really fascinating stuff, research into this phenomenon, which is why we're all so bloody angry online and we get so upset and find it so distressing. But maybe there is something about if we almost like have small amounts of exposure therapy to that and we can develop a bit more of a tolerance. I'm not saying this is a good thing and something to be encouraged. We should all be just out there like gladiators in this hideous online arena, but maybe there is something about doing some training exercises, like once a week going into an anonymous Reddit forum and just
commenting on one of the default subs and getting blasted for it. I mean, it sounds silly and it sounds weird. I really do feel like it's helped.
No, I can totally see why it's helping. I can totally see that. That's fascinating. I know. I almost want you to take me into the shadowy world of Reddit and I don't think I could.
I've just gotten my husband on Reddit after years of being on it myself. So we sat down and I showed him some of the subs he could, subscribe to, and he's really excited by it. So, but I don't think he's commenting. I think he's just like subscribing to stuff and reading stuff. So you can also do that.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe...
There's good stuff on there, and there's also a lot of crazy stuff on there.
Yeah, I think that's the bit that scares me. It's like I don't want exposure to the insanity that's out there. So what are some of the other things that can happen? So I can remember my very first website, and I can remember having pictures done for my very first website. And I got my husband to take them in the back garden, and I wore a business jacket. I wore like a suit jacket. And have you ever seen me in a suit jacket? Have you ever seen me even in like a button-up shirt or something? That is just not me. And so he took these pictures, and I built this website modelling it on everything else I was seeing online. So it's like I was looking for, what are the rules? I'm here in this new place, this new internet world. What are the rules? Because I want to be able to follow the rules, because if I don't follow the rules, I might be cast out, or I might kind of inadvertently trip up. So I was following all the rules, and it was the blandest bloody website ever. I mean, it was picturing me wearing my little business jacket, smiling at the camera. There was oodles of pictures of women in cornfields with big floppy hats on. Those generic life coach images. Yeah. And nobody paid any attention at all, which actually at the time was fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I could have handled anybody noticing it. But the only time that my business started to get any kind of traction was, I've talked about this before, is like I kind of got to the point where I was so exhausted and so kind of despondent because none of these things that I was doing was working, was when I kind of thought, you know what, sod it, I'm just going to show up as me. Much more as me, because I haven't got the energy to put on the suit and the jacket and look all perky and all of that anymore. And that was when a trickle of people started to take notice, and then it kind of increased a little bit. The more me I am as a show up, the more response, the better my business, because people can either decide either I'm for them or I'm not. But it's taken a long time to get to that. And I do also think there is something about the fact that I'm almost 47. And there's something about the older I get, the
less you care.
Yeah, the less I care. Yeah.
Do you know, my mom always used to say that to me when I was a kid. She would always be like, when you grow up, no, you won't care what anyone says about you. I don't care what anyone says about me. And I remember thinking, like, I was like a teenager and she would say this to me. And I remember thinking, damn, I really, really want that. And it felt like it took so long for me. And I mean, I obviously still haven't got to that point because I still care. Like, I read a bad review of one of my books and I'm like, but I can handle it. But I remember reading this blog post, I don't know, maybe about 8 or 10 years ago. It was such a good post. It was something like, it was about how every woman, when she's in her 30s, she gets visited by the I don't give a fuck fairy or something like that. And this fairy like sprinkles her magic dust on you and you no longer give a fuck what people think about you. I'm gonna try to find a link to it in the show notes because it was so funny and it was so good. And I read that at about a time of my life where I was starting to not care as much what people thought about me. And it was like, oh, I'm so glad I've arrived. And I haven't completely, like I said, it's not like 100%, but it's so much easier for me now to say things and to put out videos and to put out books. I mean, my first books were really scary to put out. My first walking book, where I walked 100 miles and it was really, really hard. And I shared all of that. I shared about crying at the side of the trail. Like, that was a big thing for me to put out there. And I have 2 1-star reviews in that book and it hurts. But I did it. You know, I put the book out there. So, like, I'm taking the action now. Mm-hmm. And I find that this is all building this kind of resilience muscle to putting our stuff out there is a lot like taking little steps outside our comfort zone. And I think that taking little steps outside our comfort zone in any area of our lives can help with business. Obviously, we need to be taking steps in business, but like even little stuff, like last weekend, I went on this wild camping course in South Wales. And I've always wanted to go wild camping, but I've been too scared to do it because I don't know how to do it.
Like camping. So that you're not in a
campground. You're in like the wilderness of Britain.
Do you have to pee in the woods?
Well, we ended up going to this little place alongside a stream. It wasn't really woodsy, but it was kind of like in the Black Mountains.
Oh, okay. So you have to pee in a stream.
Well, we needed a water source, so.
Okay, I don't want to ask him anymore. See, I am so
in the stream. We were alongside the stream, but anyway.
See, I'm just about at the level where I can cope with glamping, but wild camping is just like, what?
This was my dream, but I was too scared of it. So a couple months ago, I just sat down on Google and said, I'm just going to Google, is there such a thing as a wild camping course? And indeed there is. So I signed up with this guy I'd never met before. Uh-huh. And I was so afraid because I thought, I'm going to be in Wales, which has like bigger hills than I'm used to. Mm-hmm. It's going to be strenuous. I'm going to be carrying a big backpack. I was so afraid I was going to be like the slowest, shittiest hiker in the group. And I was like the slowest, but not by much. So it was hard. It was challenging. It was amazing. And I'm so glad I did it. But I think that step outside my comfort zone, like being afraid of what will they think of me if I'm slow? What will they think of me if I need to take a break? What will they think of me if I get a blister on my heel? What will they, like, I had so much of that crap coming up, but I did it anyway. And that little stretch outside my comfort zone, I absolutely believe is going to help me with business. I mean, I came back on Sunday night, and Monday, I felt like a different person because I had conquered a lot of my fears, and that has a ripple effect.
Oh, that's for sure. I can remember when I went on my first kind of course abroad. So I flew to San Diego and went on this retreat. And in my mind, one of my biggest fears was I was going to be the oldest person there. Because I'd kind of, we had a Facebook group and there's lots of people in there, and they all seemed, and I thought, oh, they're all going to be millennial and they're all going to be like super energetic and like really, really successful. And yeah, there were some people who were like a lot more successful, quote unquote, than I was. There were people there who were younger than me. There were people there who were thinner than me. There was like half a dozen yoga teachers there who was just like, oh my God, can I just look at you? Could you just look at me? So amazing. But there were also people who were older than me. There were people who were just starting out on their journey. There was just a whole collection of really lovely humans. None of us like being... It's a really nice feeling competent and feeling like you're on solid ground with what you're doing. But to grow, we have to get out of that place. We have to go again and again back to like the beginner place, like to the I haven't got a fucking clue what I'm doing place. I need some help place. Yeah. And so I think that all of our conversations seem to come back to resilience.
It is. It's about building the resilience muscle of doing the stuff we need to do to run our business. Yeah. Even if we have that fear, will they like me? What will they think of me?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's kind of how do we work through their fears? So could we give people some practical tips, some kind of baby steps that they could take?
Go on Reddit.
Okay.
Be controversial. Have an opinion in the default subs. So that's ridiculous. But yes, that would help. Anything you can do to take a step outside your comfort zone. So like I said with YouTube, maybe you want to start doing videos, but you're scared of comments. You can put the video up and disable comments. That's an option. That might be your first baby step. And then as your channel grows, you might want to enable comments, and that could be your next step. Little things like that. So think about the things you want to do. Do kind of an easier version of that.
So like baby steps towards it, rather than thinking, okay, I'm just totally jump into the middle of the icy cold water without armbands. Just do what are the baby steps you can do to dip your toe in, and then maybe go paddling, and then maybe go up to your knees.
Yeah.
I also think there's something kind of useful about spending some time, whether it be journaling, whether it be meditating, kind of looking at what are the things I'm afraid of. What's my inner critic? What's my inner child? But what are the parts of me that are scared of doing this? What are they scared of? And are those things real?
Yeah, and I say all this all the time because we have the tendency to sweep that stuff under the rug because we think that'll make it go away. You've got to pull the rug back, pull that stuff out, look at it, and do the work to transform it. Because if you try to shove it down, it's still going to be there in the background.
Yeah. It's like whack-a-mole. It will just come up in another place, in another way that you hadn't kind of thought. It's like, suddenly I'm afraid of doing this as well now then. Great. So I think definitely kind of looking at what are the fears. Are they true? What can I do to kind of support that part of me through this process?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of community. I'm a big fan of getting alternative opinions, because that opinion that you have in your head, everyone's going to think I'm an awful person for doing this or whatever. They can seem so definite.
Yeah.
Probably aren't.
Yeah.
Everyone won't think that. Maybe people might.
Yeah.
Do I'm
one person
working through it to what is getting a good kind of reality check on those things.
Yeah.
And then I think getting some support as you're actually doing the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're freaking out, if you've written the copy but you're scared to put it up, or you're scared to get support with that.
Yeah, for sure. And celebrate that progress as well.
Yes.
Something else we're really rubbish at doing.
I am too. But even if it's really, really tiny, like you put a video up, maybe you disable comments. That's still a win. Yes. Like that's still a good thing. That's still a visibility thing. Like I was also thinking with my podcast, in the beginning, I just did interviews. So it was about me kind of showcasing other people's wisdom and experience and knowledge. And it took me a while before I started doing solo episodes. And now I'm exclusively doing solo episodes and then kind of the co-hosted ones with you and Joanna. So it's a lot more of me rather than me showcasing someone else. That was a process. That was a journey. I started out with what was easy, which was interviewing, and I kind of moved my way up. And even with those interviews, I remember I had a spreadsheet with 3 categories of people on there, like that I wanted to get as guests. I started out with the easy people, and then I had kind of the mid-range people, and then I had the people that scared me. I worked my way up through that list. Start with what's easy, but like take an action. And if there's something you want to do, but it's so scary, think how you can make it easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, break it down into sub-steps or, baby steps towards it. And keep that North Star goal in mind. Keep the end in mind. What will it be like when you've done that, when you've achieved that, when you've sold out the course, or when you've got a full coaching practice, or when you've got your first 100 subscribers on YouTube, or when you've written the book, or you've published it, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What will that feel like? What will that look like? What else will be different? What will be impacted? Keep going back to the reason you want this thing.
Yeah. What's it going to give you? How's it going to change your life?
And that can magnetize your action towards the goal. Because quite often we get really stuck on the scary bit. Mentally, we just get stuck on, but that feels really horrible, I don't want to do it. And so we withdraw. But imagine yourself once you're past that scary bit, on the other side of it.
Yeah. Yes.
When you're walking out of the dentist, rather than thinking what it's going to be like when you sat in the dentist chair. Just imagine yourself walking out. So imagine what it's going to be like when you see those, that PayPal balance, when you've sold out the course, or whatever it may be. And get some support.
Yeah.
Find your people, get some support.
Yes. In whatever way that looks like for you. It could be a mastermind group. It could be like a Facebook group of friends. It could be Skyping with a business friend. It could be, there's so many different ways that you can get support.
Yeah. All right, my love. I think we have solved this one, or we've at least covered it extensively. Anything else that you feel we've not really touched on?
No, not really. But I would really like to encourage anyone listening to this. Think of one thing you could do, no matter how tiny, one little baby step action you could do today or this week that will take you outside your comfort zone, even if it's just a little bit, and help you build that resilience muscle and, do something different and new and scary.
And keep doing it. Little steps every day. It really does add up.
Yay.
Thank you, my love. I'm so impressed at wild camping, and you're a secret Reddit commentator.
You thought you knew me, but you've learned so much more today.
Yes. Thank you. This has been great. It's been really interesting. You might have to show me around Reddit sometime.
I'm happy to show you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
So that was today's episode. Please drop me a line. Let me know what you thought of it, how it shows up for you, and what you have done to take action despite having these fears. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and get in touch. Also love for you to join me in my private Facebook group, Business Mindset Alchemists, so we can continue the conversation there. Joe and I have just been talking at you for the last 45 minutes or so. So it would be lovely to hear some feedback from you in the group. So if you head over to hollywharton.com/group, you will be redirected to the Facebook group and you can tell me what you think. I would love to know. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It would mean the world to me. Next week's episode, I am back with another solo show. And that's it for now. Remember to visit hollywharton.com/259 for the show notes on this episode. See you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollywharton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.